Broncos country, welcome back to another video here on the Parker Love Sports YouTube channel. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to spend them here with me. My name is Parker, and in today's video, we're going to be going over my final Denver Broncos roster prediction for the 2024-25 NFL season. Now, originally, I wasn't planning on doing this video because there are so many position battles going on. It's like you don't have a clear-cut answer, but that's the fun of these prediction videos, to give my perspective on what I think the Denver Broncos roster should look like. So yeah, there might be some players that you disagree with. Maybe I should keep more of more players at a certain position than I am. Maybe I should keep certain players over others. So if you think that, let me know in the comment section below. Now, I am rocking the Bo Nix throwback jersey. I figured, why not? Bo Nix is not going to be playing in the third preseason game, which is taking place on Sunday. Now, of course, this is speculative to change the roster. There, of course, is cut down day. All the teams need to cut their rosters down to 53 players, and the Broncos could cut a lot of players where they can sign players from other teams that have gotten cut. Now, here's the thing, though. I will be making a video for the Denver Broncos final roster. Expect that to be a couple days after the roster is cut down. Maybe it will happen the same day, but typically my videos come out a day after things happen. I like to take my time with videos and not rush them out. That's just kind of how I personally operate. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Let's jump straight into this. And as always, I want to remind you that Jesus is King and that Jesus loves you, and that the only thing that we need to do to get to heaven is accept Jesus as our Lord and Savior and believe that he died on the cross for your sins. A lot of people think it's how many times we go to church, how many times we read the Bible, or how many times we do these good works. And while those things are good, the sole thing that saves us is Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. A lot of people don't like that I'm sharing this message, but it's important to me, and I'm going to share it at the beginning of every single one of my videos. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into the Denver Broncos final roster prediction, at least my Denver Broncos final roster prediction. So, first up, we have the coaches, and I'm only going to be doing 3 coaches here. When the actual roster drops, I'll be going over the coaching staff in depth. It probably won't be like super in depth like the assistant running back coaches, but we'll do obviously the big 3: head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, quarterback coaches, major ones like that. Ones that I feel are important. But yeah, I will be including most of the coaching staff in my roster reveal when the Broncos cut their roster down to 53 players. But as of right now, obviously, it's head coach Sean Payton, offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi, and defensive coordinator Vance Joseph. Now, let's start with the quarterbacks. I think, obviously, this is a gimme. It's been announced. Bo Nix is going to be the starting quarterback for Week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks, and this should be no surprise to anybody. Bo Nix has played fantastic in his first 2 games during the preseason, and obviously, it was his job to lose. Just by the way he was playing, he earned the starting quarterback position over Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. So, going into this final preseason game, Bo Nix will not be playing. It'll be, it's going to be Jarrett Stidham for 8 to 12 snaps, something like that, I believe it was. And then Zach Wilson gets the rest of the game to fully identify and evaluate who's going to be the backup quarterback for the Denver Broncos. And in my opinion, I think it's going to be Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is still very young. I think he's 25. He's only a year older than Bo Nix. And, he's still young, so he does have that upside. Maybe not to the level that he was when he was the 2nd overall pick anymore. But I do think that Sean likes the upside and the value that Zach Wilson brings. We save money if we do cut Stidham. And, the Broncos could look to have Zach Wilson as their backup of the future for the next few seasons so Peyton can develop him. And then Zach can go out and get another shot at a potential starting quarterback job, or be a bridge quarterback somewhere. So I do think that Peyton likes the upside of Zach Wilson, and I do think that he will be the backup for this upcoming season for the Denver Broncos. Moving on to the running back position, I kind of spoiled this. If you guys saw my previous video, I went in depth for the running back and wide receiver position, so those two kind of have already been spoiled. So I guess I'll go through those relatively quickly. Obviously, Javonte Williams, he looks healthy. I do think he's going to be the starting running back, and if he plays well, he's going to retain that starting running back position. But I also do like the depth that we have. Obviously, Javonte Williams, he's going to hit you in the mouth. He's going to run through you. He's going to be a hard hard dude to tackle if he's truly fully healthy from that ACL injury a couple seasons ago. Didn't really look super healthy last season, but I'm hoping that he's back to that 2021 form, his rookie year, where he was just running through everybody. I'm hoping he can get back to that form. Next up, though, we do have Jaleel McLaughlin, and I do believe McLaughlin will have a major role in the Denver Broncos offense this upcoming season. I expect him to be that scat back, receiving back type of guy for Sean Payton. Kind of, that shift. I've obviously explained that already, but I do expect McLaughlin to get a significant amount of playing time this upcoming season for the Broncos. Javonte is going to be that workhorse back, but McLaughlin will be an impactful back if, kind of that change of pace back. If you need a pass, he can play in the receiving game. If you want him to be that scat back, he can play that. You can throw screens to Jaleel McLaughlin. I do expect him to get a significant amount of playing time going into year 2 for McLaughlin. At number 3, I have Audric Estime, the 5th-round pick out of Notre Dame. He's that physical runner. He's going to run through you. Not the fastest guy, but, I do like the upside that Estime has. Played solid in the first preseason game. Struggled a little bit in that second preseason game against the Packers from what I saw. Of course, I was at the game. I wasn't watching on TV because obviously I'm lucky enough to get to go to every single game because my dad has had season tickets since I was very young. But yeah, Audric Estime, I do expect to maybe have some carries. I don't know if he's going to be featured a whole lot, but I like the upside of Estime, and I definitely think he is a future back for this team. It's all going to depend on how Javonte Williams plays, but Estime, he's a tank, dude. He's going to run through you. He's going to hit you in the mouth. Not going to really have the speed to run around you, so he is going to go through you, and he is going to be that tank at the running back position. And then at 4, I have Blake Watson, the undrafted free agent out of Memphis. He's kind of that elusive back. He can play in the receiving back role. And I do think if Watson makes this team, this is going to be sort of a redshirt year for him, so to speak. He's going to, I don't know how much playing time he's going to get. He might be a special teamer and make an impact on special teams, either as a returner, a gunner, or just playing in the special teams for his rookie year. But I really like the upside that Blake Watson brings. If something goes wrong with Javonte, I like the upside that Watson brings. I thought he was definitely going to be drafted in this past draft, goes undrafted, and we were lucky enough to sign him. So I do expect Blake Watson to make the team. Had a really solid first preseason game. In his second preseason game against the Packers, maybe didn't get the biggest opportunity, didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but I still like what Blake Watson brings to the table. And to me, this would be a tough cut. It's either going to be between Blake Watson or Tyler Beatty for this 4th running back position for me. It's kind of pick your poison. Who do you want to keep? Who are you going to cut? You're probably going to lose one of them to another team. I don't think they're going to be able to make it back to the practice squad. You obviously hope for that, but I doubt one of them makes it back to the practice squad. So you got to keep which one you think will help your team make an impact in the long run. So I'm going to go with Blake Watson here, but could be Tyler Beatty as well. And then the 5th running back, who I forgot to mention in the last video, but it's going to be Michael Burton. He's going to be the fullback. I feel like he's kind of a lock to make the roster, unless you want to go for Nate Atkins, who's a tight end fullback hybrid. But I'm going with Michael Burton. He was really solid for us last season, mostly a blocker, but we handed him some fullback dives. He ran out in some pass plays a little bit. So I do like what Michael Burton brings to the table, and I do expect him to be the fullback for this upcoming season for the Denver Broncos. Next up, we got the wide receivers, and I got to pick this up. We are already at 9 minutes, and I'm kind of leaning into the mic, so let me just bring my camera down here a little bit. But next up, we have the wide receivers, and first up, it's going to be Courtland Sutton. He's going to be the wide receiver 1. He's going to be Bo Nix's safety valve. It's good to have this veteran presence for Bo Nix. I don't need to talk a whole lot about Courtland Sutton, but he's going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Broncos. At wide receiver 2, it is going to be Josh Reynolds, the veteran, who we picked up from the Detroit Lions, and he had a really solid year last year. Obviously, everyone knows that, and then, of course, he struggled in the NFC Championship game. But it's another veteran presence for Bo Nix at the wide receiver position, so he doesn't have to do everything by himself. He doesn't have to make these spectacular plays with no help, so to speak. Is it the flashiest or sexiest wide receiver room? No, absolutely not. But a veteran presence like Josh Reynolds will help Bo Nix in his rookie year. At the third receiver, I do have Marvin Mims heading into his second year. Of course, he made the Pro Bowl as a returner, and he is one of the best returners in the entire National Football League, and I expect him to still make an impact in the return game. But I'm hoping this year we utilize Marvin Mims more on offense. I feel like last year we didn't utilize him a whole lot on offense. I'm hoping this year that changes and Marvin Mims becomes that deep threat receiver out of the slot. So, yeah, that's what I expect to happen for Marvin Mims. And Marvin Mims, he's just a fun, electric player. I'm hoping to see him utilized more in the offense this upcoming season. At number 4, we got Tim Patrick. To me, he was kind of a bubble wide receiver. Is he going to make the team or is he not? It's kind of a stacked wide receiver room at the moment, and I do think he's going to make the team. After his performance last week, I think he was the most targeted receiver by Bo Nix last week in the preseason. I might be wrong on that, but from my eyes and from what I remember from the game, I believe it was Tim Patrick who was targeted the most. So I do think he has solidified his position, and good for Tim, man, coming back from an ACL and an Achilles injury and back-to-back seasons, missed the entire Russell Wilson era in Denver. Never caught a pass from Russell Wilson in an actual game, preseason or regular season. So, yeah, it's just kind of crazy to think about. Then next up at number 5, we have Troy Franklin. You know, he has been struggling with his hands, struggling with catching the football. Feel like he's started to pick that back up and started to catch the football again, which is good to see. And I'm hoping to see him utilized more in preseason week 3. I believe he was targeted once in the first preseason game and then wasn't targeted in the last preseason game. I'm hoping he gets more opportunities and he can show us what he has. I think he is going to make the roster. I think the team believes in him. But, you know, he is more of a project wide receiver, so I'm thinking this year might be a little bit of a red shirt year, and then next season we'll have to see what happens with Sutton, what happens with Josh Reynolds. Maybe Franklin moves into that wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 role next season after essentially redshirting this year. But I still love what Troy Franklin brings. I love the upside in Troy Franklin. You know, does need to work on his route running a little bit. But Troy Franklin he was one of my favorite picks in this entire draft. I'm hoping we get to see him more here in preseason week 3. But he's going to be the 5th wide receiver to start the year. And who knows, he could absolutely climb the depth chart as the season goes on, depending on what he does in practice and what he does in the games when he gets reps and when he gets those opportunities. And finally, at the number 6 wide receiver position, and he could honestly be higher. I think the 1 through 3 is Sutton, Reynolds, Mims, and then 4 through 5 you could move in any order. You could move him up, you can move him down, but it's going to be Devon Vele, the rookie 7th round pick out of Utah, and he honestly surprised me. I hadn't heard a whole lot about him until we drafted him, did some research, and I was like, okay, yeah, he looks solid, but I think he's going to be more of a practice squad guy, and then he's been balling out here in training camp, and so I think he grabs that 6th wide receiver position. Again, we could carry more wide receivers. I think 6, though, is a lot for Sean Payton, considering we only held 4 last season, but I do think, you know, you could carry 7, but I'm going to keep it here at 6, and Devon Vele gets that last wide receiver position for the Broncos. You know, of course, he is an older rookie. I think he's, 27 years old because he went to Utah. He went on a mission trip, which good for him. He is just a little bit of an older rookie, which was a majority of cause for concern because by the time his rookie contract is up, he's going to be in his 30s, which is crazy, but by the way he's been performing in obviously the first preseason game and then as well as in training camp, he's been solid. Of course, missed last preseason game with an injury. He's expected to play this week in the preseason finale against the Arizona Cardinals. But yeah, Devon Vele is the final wide receiver that I'm predicting to make the roster. Now, moving on to the tight ends. I think when he's healthy, Greg Dulcich is the tight end 1. He's that vertical playmaker. He's going to be that receiving threat at tight end. He's going to stretch the field at the tight end position. And, you know, he's an athletic tight end. He's not the best blocker, but when he's on the field, I love the ability that Greg Dulcich possesses as a receiving threat. Now, the problem is staying on the field. The past few seasons, Greg Dulcich has dealt with injuries. Of course, his rookie year, he missed the first few games with an injury, came back, looked pretty solid, then missed more time. Then last season, he played in the first few games and then was sidelined the rest of the season with an injury. I'm hoping Dulcich can stay healthy because I love the upside that Dulcich brings to the table. He's just got to stay healthy. Next up, it is going to be Adam Troutman, and he's kind of your hybrid guy, or I guess he's not your only hybrid guy, but he is a hybrid tight end. He can make an impact in the receiving game. Is it going to be the greatest impact like a George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce show? No, absolutely not. But, he can provide somewhat of a target in the receiving game at the tight end position, but he can also block. He can be that extra lineman if you need him to. So Adam Troutman, kind of that balanced tight end. If you play Madden, that dual, not necessarily dual threat, but, he can block and he can go out and catch passes as a receiver. And then finally, I'm only keeping 3 tight ends. You could argue to keep more, but I'm keeping Lucas Krull. I know a lot of Broncos fans are high on Lucas Krull to be our tight end of the future. I know a lot of Broncos fans were saying that in the offseason. I wasn't of that opinion. And, if you are of that opinion, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. I'm not judging you. To me, I don't know. I like Lucas Krull, but as the tight end 1, the tight end of the future, I don't know about that. But I do expect him to make the roster. He can be a blocker, or he can be used in the receiving game as a receiving threat. And I like Krull, but maybe not in that tight end 1, maybe kind of as that tight end number 2 for the Broncos. If you were to argue a 4th tight end to be in the roster, I think it's going to be between 2 guys here. I think it's going to be between Nate Adkins, and I think it's going to be between Hunter Kampmoyer. Those are the 2 that I think have the best shots to be that tight end number 4. I know we signed Thomas Yasmin. He was an Australian. He went to the University of Utah, and I wanted to put him on the roster. I just feel like we're not utilizing him that much, and I think that Kampmoyer or I think that Atkins would make the roster over him personally. Next up, we have the offensive tackles. At the left tackle position, it's going to be Garrett Bowles. He's going into a contract year, so this could be the final year on his contract for Garrett Bowles. But, he's been with the team since 2017. He's the lone bright spot of that 2017 draft, and he's going to be solid. I think he's the last one of that line from a few seasons ago, which is crazy to think about. But Garrett Bowles, solid left tackle, going into his, I can't remember what it is, 30-something. He's 30-something years old. He was an older rookie when we drafted him. But yeah, Garrett Bowles, I do expect, obviously, to be the left tackle. Same thing with Mike McGlinchey. We paid a lot of money to Mike McGlinchey last season. He signed a 5-year deal, so including this season, he's got 4 more years left on his deal with the Broncos. I expect him to be the right tackle. Had his ups and downs last season. I'm hoping he can bounce back and really perform and be that right tackle for the Broncos. I mean, he's been better than a lot of right tackles that we've had the past few years, so I'm grateful for that, but I'm hoping to see maybe McGlinchey go and improve upon what he did last season. And then as the swing tackle, I do have it being Alex Palkowski, the undrafted free agent last year out of Illinois. I think the Broncos love Alex Palkowski. He's that swing tackle, undrafted free agent, signed him. I think he was going to make the roster last season, but got hurt, went on IR, was activated off of IR again. And I want to see what Alex Palkowski can bring. Does he have that tackle 1 upside? Maybe, maybe not. But I think he's a very solid swing tackle, a very young swing tackle for the Denver Broncos. Next up, let's look at the interior offensive lineman. I'm trying to start speeding things up here, so this video isn't going to take forever. But we have Quinn Miners. He's going to be the right guard. In my opinion, he's our second best player on the entire roster. Just signed a 4-year extension, which I'm so happy that we did because Quinn Miners is not only our second best player, but he's our best offensive lineman in my opinion. The belly. He's one of the best guards in the entire NFL. So, yeah, Quinn Miners is the starting right guard this season. At number 2, Ben Powers, who he signed in free agency, another big impactful guy. Sean Payton built up that offensive line last offseason, which is needed, especially with a rookie quarterback. You want to have a very solid offensive line. And so I do believe that this offensive line will protect Bo Nix. The weak link, which we'll talk about here in a second, is that center position. But yeah, Ben Powers is going to be the right guard this upcoming season. At the center, right now, to me, from what I've seen and just watching the preseason games, It's looking like Luke Wattenberg is going to win that starting center role. Of course, he was a 5th-round pick back in that, what was it? It was the 2022 draft class with Nathaniel Hackett. Um, I'm hoping I'm hoping he plays solid because that draft class is not looking super good. But yeah, Luke Wattenberg looks like he is winning that competition at the moment. I think he's going into his 3rd year out of Washington. Hopefully we see something good in him. But yeah, Wattenberg wasn't on my radar when we drafted him. But as of right now, it looks like he's winning the starting center position over Alex Forsyth and Sam Mustipher. Of course, he has the flexibility to play as a guard or a center. So yeah, but all the other guys have that as well. Sam Mustipher, he's the veteran. We signed him in free agency this offseason to a 1-year deal. And yeah, he looks to be the backup center, backup guard maybe. I think he's going to be the backup interior lineman. If Wattenberg goes down at center, I think Mustipher will be plugged in there. If Quinn Miners or Ben Powers goes down, I hope that he goes in there. Of course, knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen. But Mustipher, I think, is going to be the backup center, or he's going to be the backup guard as well. And then finally, I do have Alex Forsyth, who was the 7th-round pick in 2023 out of Oregon. He was Bo Nix's center 2 years ago, and he raved to the Broncos coaching staff. That's, of course, another reason why we took, I guess not really another reason, but it showed the good characters of Bo Nix. They asked his former center. He raved about him. I really thought Alex Forsyth was going to be the center this year. I kept predicting it. I thought he was going to be the starting center. I don't think it's going that way right now. Would have loved to see the Oregon connection, the familiarity that Bo Nix has with Alex Forsyth, but he looks to be a backup guard, backup center, kind of like Sam Mustipher. We'll have to see, though. I personally would like to see Alex Forsyth be a starting center. I loved him coming out of the draft process. Thought he was a steal in the 7th round in 2023. But, I'm hoping that he will get some playing time because I still like him as a prospect. But, of course, we'll have to see how things pan out. The offensive line so far, outside the starting guys, has not been great this season. I guess in the preseason, especially when Zach Wilson came in preseason week 2, they felt like they weren't blocking for him. So hopefully they can improve this upcoming week against the Arizona Cardinals. Next up, we have the defensive linemen, and starting off, it's going to be Zach Allen. Started off last season pretty slow, but then picked up the pace. He's looked solid in the preseason when he's been given opportunities. Of course, he's a starter, so he's not getting a whole lot of playing time. But Zach Allen, he's looked pretty solid. Of course, got a sack last week against Green Bay. I'm excited for year 2 for Zach Allen here in Denver. Next up, we have John Franklin Myers, which was one of the biggest offseason pickups for the Broncos. We traded for him during the draft, and I remember when the news broke, I was going crazy. Everyone who was in here for the live stream and chat was going crazy. Great pickup for the Broncos. We needed to fix this interior defensive line, not only to stop the run, but to provide that interior pass rush. And John Franklin Myers, coming off of that Jets defensive line, a huge pickup and huge acquisition for us. He's going to be he's going to help us. We were one of the worst at stopping the run. He's going to help stop the run, and he's going to help provide pass rush. I'm super excited about this John Franklin Myers pickup. Next up, we have DJ Jones. He's going to be that nose tackle. Really excels in stopping the run. Not the biggest pass rusher. He is sort of starting to regress a little bit. I'm hoping that he goes back a couple seasons ago when he was with the Niners. He is going into his last year on this current contract. He signed it when we picked up Russell Wilson. He said he wanted to play with Russell Wilson. That obviously didn't really work out with Russ. But yeah, DJ Jones, solid nose tackle, but I don't know if he'll be with the Broncos beyond this year. Next up, though, we have Ioma Uwazurike. And Uwazurike, of course, he was a 4th-round pick back in that 2022 Nathaniel Hackett draft class. We had back-to-back picks, and we selected Damari Mathis and Ioma Uwazurike back-to-back. I like what Uwazurike brings to the table. Of course, got suspended all of last year for gambling. Said he learned his lesson, which I'm hoping he does, and that's a good thing. but I'm hoping he can pick back up. I like the upside that Uwazurike brings. We'll just have to see if he makes an impact over guys. Well, I really think Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers, they're kind of the two cornerstones. I think they're going to be solid on that offense, or that defensive line, rather. So I would guess you would have to try and take DJ Jones' spot. We'll have to see. I like the upside of Ioma, but we'll have to see if he starts, if he can challenge one of the starting positions. But yeah, we'll see. I do think he makes the roster. Just where is he going to fit in for the Broncos? And then next up, Matt Henningsen, the what is it? I think 6th round pick in that 2022 class again. Got a chance to start, got a chance to play last season, and I thought he played okay. I don't think he was the greatest. I don't think he was horrible. I thought he played okay for the Broncos. I think he's going to be a depth lineman, someone who, if you need a plug-in for a play or two, I think will be fine, but maybe not someone you want playing every single snap. But still like Henningsen, coming out of Wisconsin, he's this big dude. He's going to help in the run game, which is a big need for the Broncos. We were one of the worst teams at defending the run, as I keep saying. Love the upside of Henningsen, and a lot of people from the roster predictions that I've seen have Matt Henningsen being cut, which maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't, but I like Henningsen, so I'm keeping him on the roster here. Next up, though, we do have Malcolm Roach. A report came out before I started recording this that Malcolm Roach is kind of that class clown in that defensive lineman room, and everyone loves him. He's more of a depth defensive lineman, but he excels at stopping the run. That's his specialty. Maybe not the greatest pass rusher, but when we needed to find ways to stop the run, picking up Malcolm Roach is not a bad way to do that. Going to be substituted in, maybe on pure running downs, he's substituted in to defend the run. But yeah, Malcolm Roach, we picked up from the Saints, and so, I did expect him to make the roster. If it's between him and Henningsen, I think for a final spot, if we only keep 5, I think the head tilt probably goes to Roach. But we'll see. We'll have to see how the roster pans out. Of course, that's in the future. We're playing Sunday. The Broncos are playing Sunday in their final preseason game. Cut down day is Tuesday, so we'll see then what happens with the roster. Next up, we got the edge rushers, and this is a very young group. Starting off with Baron Browning. Of course, he was a part of that 2021 draft class, which is the best draft class from George Paton so far as the Broncos general manager. Started off as an inside linebacker, but then he transferred to an edge rusher position, and when he first transferred, he looked electric. He looked like a star. The team started to figure him out a little bit. Then last season, he started the season off hurt. And now he's going into his contract year, the final year of his rookie deal before he's either extended by the Broncos or goes somewhere else in free agency. I'm hoping for a breakout year because I think we need to. I love all of our edge rushers right now. It's a very young group, a very young room. I'm hoping for a breakout year for Baron Browning to get that edge rusher that we're used to having. Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, DeMarcus Ware. We've had these elite edge rushers, and I really like the upside that we have. But yeah, we'll have to see. I like Baron Browning, hoping he has a solid year. Right now, it looks like he's going to be the edge rusher 1. Edge rusher 2, though, I think it's a competition between Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito. Let's talk first about Jonathan Cooper. Of course, he was a 6th round pick in that 2021 class out of Ohio State as well. So Browning and Cooper are both teammates. Like what Cooper brings, I think he can be a very solid edge 2, maybe edge 3 rotational guy. Of course, he's going into the final year of his contract as well, so we'll see what happens. Do the Broncos bring both Browning and Cooper back, or that's for the future. But I like Jonathan Cooper, another young guy for the Broncos. And then Nick Bonito is someone who I am expecting to have a breakout year as well. I really love the upside of Nick Bonito, just this pure pass rusher. That was kind of his signature trait. That was his, I don't know the exact word I'm looking for, but that was his signature. That was his speciality, if you will, when he was coming out of the draft, was pass rushing. Needed to work on his run defending a little bit, and I thought last season he made great strides in defending the run as well. So I'm expecting Nick Benito to potentially have a breakout year as well. I think he could be our edge too. Love the upside of Nick Benito, and I'm hoping for a big year from Nick Benito. Like I said, love the upside. Was our second round pick in that Hackett draft class. Nick Benito, I'm hoping he takes that next step. Has been taking steps, don't get me wrong. Pure pass rusher, then developing and stopping the run. Now I'm hoping he excels into one of those elite pass rushers. That's the hope right now. But we'll see. I like the upside of Benito, even if he doesn't develop into the elite pass rusher. I think he's going to still be a high upside number 2 pass rusher. We'll see, though. I keep saying that, but I really like Nick Benito, and I'm hoping for a big year from him. Next up, though, Jonah Ellis, and he's been one of the highest graded rookie defensive ends. I think that's what PFF called it. And say what you will about PFF. I don't really just trust them blindly, but it's pretty cool to see. I think Jonah Ellis, he's been raising his bar. Wasn't what I expected when we drafted him. I thought maybe that's a little high, but he's been performing really well in the preseason. And, of course, take preseason everything with a grain of salt. But Ellis has been performing well, and, he could be a potential future number 1 for us at the edge position. And then next up, we have Dondrea Tillman, who we signed to a 3-year contract out of the UFL. I think a lot of people have forgotten about this, but we didn't sign him just to a 1-year deal. We signed him to a 3-year deal, which makes me believe that the Broncos want to keep Dondrea Tillman on the roster, so I think he will make the roster, and I'm excited. I think he has the opportunity to play as both an edge rusher or in the interior of the line, or of the defensive line. But yeah, I think a lot of people are forgetting about Dondrea Tillman, and I do expect him to make this roster as well. Next up, though, we're moving to the linebackers, starting with Alex Singleton. I'm going to just pick this up because we're half an hour in, and yeah, I'm just going to pick this up. Alex Singleton, I do expect to be the linebacker 1, signed a 3-year deal at the end of last offseason, so this will be year 2 of year 3 of that deal. Alex Singleton, we know who he is. He's going to wrap up a lot of tackles. He's going to be physical. He's going to wrap you up. Not the strongest as a pass rusher, not the strongest in pass coverage, but he'll stop the run and he'll make tackles. We know who Alex Singleton is. And number 2, we got Cody Barton, which, I don't know how I feel about this. We'll have to see. I think the linebackers might be the weakest position group on the entire team. But yeah, Cody Barton, we'll have to see. I'm not too sure what to expect. Of course, he's played with both Washington and Seattle. But yeah, Cody Barton is going to be the linebacker 2, along with Jonas Griffith, who was scary. He went down in the Packers game, came back later though. So yeah, Jonas Griffith and then also Justin Strnad are the backup linebackers. Could argue maybe Lavelle Bailey, the undrafted free agent out of Fresno State, could be here, but I'm going with those 2. I'm going with this linebacker room. It's pretty much the same from last year, just minus Josie Jewell. But yeah, these are the 4 linebackers I expect to make the roster. Obviously, it's in my prediction here. Then for the corners, obvious number 1, Pat Surtain, PS2. I don't even need to say anything. This should be expected, and if you didn't expect this, then I just don't know what to say to you. Next up, though, it looks like Riley Moss is trending to be that cornerback number 2 opposite of Pat Surtain, which I'm really happy about. I was saying, if you guys go watch my previous prediction video, which I made a couple months ago, I predicted that Riley Moss was going to be the cornerback number 2. Sean Payton obviously liked him. He traded up for him in the draft, not in 2024, but in 2023. And so I really think that Sean Payton likes him. I know a lot of people were criticizing that 2023 draft. They were saying it's a bad grade. And, I was trying to defend the draft by saying, yeah, you really can't judge it after just 1 year. Give it a couple years. Give it at least 3 years before you judge it. And people got really mad at me for saying that. But, we'll see. Obviously, there's still a lot of time. They can go up and down. But Riley Moss looks like he's trending to be the cornerback 2 for week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks. Then at number 3 in the slot, we do have Jaquan McMillan. Now, yeah, McMillan, if you didn't think he was going to start in the slot, I don't know what to say. He was really, really solid last season. Maybe towards the end of the season, he started to to trail off a little bit, but he's still a really, really solid slot corner. Of course, an undrafted free agent out of East Carolina. Not last year, or I guess not in 2024, not in 23, but in 2022, he was an undrafted free agent, and he's been really, really solid for us when he started at the slot position for the Broncos. Next up, I do have Levi Wallace making the roster, and he was kind of a bubble for me. I know he's been hurt, but as of right now, I think he's going to be that depth corner. I think he's going to be that next corner added if you're going to go kind of running a dime package. If you need multiple defensive backs on the field, I think he will be on there, but I don't know if he is going to be a starter this year, but I think he's going to be a depth corner for the Broncos. Next up, I do have Damari Mathis making the roster. This might be a little bit controversial. Coming out of that 2022 draft class, I really liked Damari Mathis. I like the upside that he brought, and I was super excited when we drafted Damari Mathis. Now, at the end of his rookie year, he played solid at corner, got the start last year at cornerback, and really was really underwhelming, underperformed, got benched a couple weeks into the season for Fabian Moreau. And I'm hoping that Damari Mathis had learned from last season and he's continuing to develop because he's still a young guy and I still believe in Damari Mathis. But we'll see. Sean Payton was not the one who drafted him. Maybe he's cut. A lot of people think that Damari Mathis will be cut. But I still like the upside that Damari Mathis brings, and I'm hoping he can improve and still develop and hopefully get another chance. Maybe not as cornerback too, but get some more playing time. And honestly, I'm still a big fan of Damari Mathis, as I keep saying. I love the upside, but we'll have to see what Sean Payton and company thinks. Next up, though, at number 6, we do have Chris Abrams-Drain, who's going to be the backup slot corner, but could honestly climb this list and doesn't even have to play the slot. I think he'll be fine if he plays the outside, maybe a little bit undersized to play the outside, but he's been performing really, really well in the preseason. And so I do expect Chris Abrams-Drain to be the backup slot to start the year, but could easily climb the roster and could make an impact this season as maybe the cornerback 4. Maybe he gets put in dime packages. I like what Chris Abrams-Drain brings. He was my number 10 corner in the entire draft class this past draft. Yeah, I'm excited about Chris Abrams-Drain. And right now he's the backup slot, but I expect him to climb the season because he's looked really, really sharp in both camp and the preseason. Of course, take it with a grain of salt, but Chris Abrams-Drain has looked really, really sharp. Finally, well, I guess not finally, but we do have the safeties, starting with Brandon Jones. Free agent signing this season. Was signed on the first day free agency was technically open, the legal tampering period. I didn't think we were going to make any moves. We did. We signed Brandon Jones. And yeah, I do expect him to be one of the starters along with PJ Locke. I would suspect that Brandon Jones would be the starting free safety and PJ Locke would be the starting strong safety. But maybe I flipped it. I don't know. But I do expect PJ Locke to be the starter. I had Caden Sturgeon as one of the starters. Obviously, he was cut. But JL Skinner, I do like what JL Skinner brings. He's not going to be afraid to hit. He's going to light you up. He's going to hit you, and he's going to tackle you. Of course, he did have that mistake where he ran into the punter, which we can't have that happening. But he almost made up for it immediately. The next play was a pass, and Skinner broke it up. I thought he actually forced a fumble. It was just an incompletion, but still a great play, and Skinner made up for it. Of course, it was a mistake. Mistakes happen. I still love the upside that JL Skinner brings, and I think he could be potentially a starter in the future as well for the Broncos. Next up, we got Delaren Turner-Yell, who is a 5th-round pick in that 2022 class out of Oklahoma. We'll see what We'll see what Turner-Yell brings to the table. I think he's going to be more of a depth safety, but maybe he surprises me. I still like Delaren Turner-Yell as a prospect. I keep saying the prospect. This will be his 3rd year in the league, but still, young guy, has some upside. We'll see what the Broncos do with Delaren Turner-Yell. And then finally, I do think Keidron Smith makes the roster. He's been performing really well in the preseason. Right now, he's kind of on that Essang Bassey track where last season, Essang Bassey had an interception in each of the 3 preseason games. Right now, Keidron Smith's on pace to do that. He got one in the first game, which I thought it was Chris Abrams-Drain who got the first interception. or got the interception in that first preseason game. Evidently, it was Keidron Smith. Got an interception in last week's game against the Packers, as you can see here on the screen. But yeah, I think Keidron Smith is going to be this year's Isang Bassi. Going to be more of a depth guy. I think he was an undrafted free agent last year out of the University of Kentucky. I think with the Chiefs is where he signed, but I can't remember exactly. But I do expect Keidron Smith to make this roster based on how he's been performing in the few preseason games and, of course, camp as well. Finally, though, we do have the specialists, so kicker, punter, and long snapper. I'm going to go through this really, really quickly. The kicker, I believe, is going to be Will Lutz. I mean, he's the only kicker on the roster, obviously. The punter, it's between Riley Dixon and Trenton Gill. I think it's going to be Riley Dixon. Not only has Riley Dixon gotten more opportunities to punt than Trenton Gill, but when he has, Riley Dixon has looked better than Trenton Gill in the punting competition. So I do expect Riley Dixon to be the punter this season. And then, of course, the only long snapper on the roster is going to be Mitchell Fraboni. So I do expect Fraboni to be the long snapper for the Denver Broncos. I think this is going to be his second year as the starting long snapper for the Broncos. But that is my roster prediction. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. What would you change? Would you keep more of a certain position? Would you keep certain players over others that I did? Yeah, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching. And my name is Parker, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.